Hi, welcome to Helps YouTube live channel today, July 1st, 2025. My name is Eric Olsen, founder of Helps. Helps is a national law firm that represents seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay. And I'd like to welcome you to our channel. How do we help seniors? Well, I've been an attorney for 46 years now. Probably did 30 to 40,000 bankruptcies before Helps was started in 2012. What Helps does is we represent seniors under a federal law called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. That law provides if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors can no longer call or send demand letters to you anymore. They have to leave you alone. So people find out about us, they enroll in our program, they give us the creditors to whom they owe money, and the debt collectors, we send out what's called a cease and desist letter, and the debt collectors have to leave them alone. They have to call us instead of you. Peace comes back to your life. We also, we tell our clients you can call us as often as you want. If you're ever worried or scared, you pick up the phone and you call. We don't turn anyone away that needs our help. For those that pay, the cost is absolutely minimal. But we do these YouTube live videos because we want to educate seniors on their financial rights. Our main mission is to protect you from collector harassment, and our second mission is to educate you how you can maintain your financial independence. So welcome to our YouTube channel. Good to have you here. If you like it, press the like button, subscribe to our channel, and I'll try to answer the questions as they come up on the chat. So Kat is asking me, she got a letter from Capital One, and they sent us a copy. Did we get it? Well, I'm not going to check right now, but I'm assuming we did. A lot of times when we get communication from our clients, we have automatic responses that go back to you by email, let you know that. You can always call and ask us if you want to. Okay. So when a person enrolls in Helps, we do that. We do that over the phone. Okay, and I'll explain how and why. Well, a lot of seniors that call us, they're desperate. Okay, they owe debt. Maybe they're being hounded by debt collectors. Their only income is Social Security. Maybe they get a pension. Maybe they have a little bit of a job, getting something. And we ask them some basic questions. And one of the things we're going to tell them that if you're getting Social Security, it's protected. If you're getting a pension, it's protected. You don't have to use it to pay a debt you can't afford to pay. And even if you get some wages, it's probably protected. It's either protected under a federal law or state law. Now, it is possible you could make a little bit too much money, but even in those cases, we don't have a problem with our clients getting garnished for a lot of different reasons. It just doesn't happen. So when you enroll or when you call us, we're going to ask you these basic questions about your income, where you live, if you're married, if you're single, how'd you find out about us? Are you buying a home? Are you renting? You're buying a car? Do you own a car? Have you been sued? Do you owe any student loans? Do you owe any income taxes? We ask about these other things because we can help on those things. We can answer your questions and give you information about those things that's going to help you. Okay? We want you to be able to realize that your income's going to be safe and protected. It's going to be available for your needs. You can choose to stop paying the debt you can't afford to pay. You're not going to be harassed. You don't need to pay it back. You don't need debt management. You don't need debt settlement. All day long we talk to people that enrolled with debt settlement companies or debt management companies. And one thing we ask them, when you enrolled, did they ever tell you? Someone this morning, I talked to someone morning, and it said, I think it was Trinity Christian Debt Relief. And I asked him, I said, well, when you talked to them, did they tell you that your income was protected, your Social Security? And that's all they got. And she said, no, they didn't tell me that. And I said, well, they weren't too Christian because they didn't give you the complete truth. They left out the most important thing you deserve to know, and that's the fact that your Social Security is protected, doesn't need to be used to pay debt you can't afford to pay. Very few of them tell seniors the truth. If they tell you the truth, you wouldn't need their help. You wouldn't sign up with them. Therefore, they wouldn't make money off you. And probably a third of their clients, I would guess, are seniors. A lot of seniors have financial problems. So listen to our channel. Listen to what we talk about today. Look at our other videos. Look at our website. Call us on the phone, and we'll go over your situation with you and answer your questions. We don't want you to worry. So Kat goes on. She wants us to write him back about being judgment proof. Well, first off, um, when someone enrolls in helps, one of the things we're going to ask them to do is get us proof of their Social Security, okay, that they're getting. Now, we don't have to have it. We like to have it because if a creditor contacts us and says, you know, uh, prove to us that they're getting Social Security, we like to be able to have that available, your statement from Social Security, so we can black out the personal information and send that to them so they can see that your income is Social Security. It makes it less likely we think that they would sue, but it doesn't matter if they do sue you. They can't do anything to you. They can get a judgment. They can't collect from you. One of the other things we tell seniors that you've heard me, if you've been listening to me, you hear me tell you this, is that twice the amount of your federal benefits, such as Social Security, deposit in your bank account is protected in that bank account from garnishment, regardless what other funds are in there. So if someone were to sue you and get a judgment and you get Social Security and you have one bank account, your checking account, and you had, let's say, 1,800 in Social Security goes in there. Twice that amount, which would be 3,600, is automatically protected in that bank account from garnishment, even if you had money that came from another source that was in that bank account. Since about 2012, banks are required to look at your bank account if they get a garnishment, and they can determine where the money came from. If it came from a federal source, they times that times two and automatically protect that sum. Okay. Now, if you happen to have more than that in there, or you had another account with money in it, but it came from Social Security or pension or something like that, it's still protected, just not automatically. You have to file some paperwork called challenge to garnishment or claim exemption to get that money released. Most people don't have that problem. So when people enroll with us, I'll tell them, I'll say, they may have more than one bank account. And I say, well, you don't need to worry how many bank accounts you have, but if you do get sued, you're going to want to make sure you just have one account. And that's the account to which your Social Security goes. And just keep the balance less than twice the amount in there. And that's usually easy for someone to do. That way, if you happen to be garnished, which is unlikely, but if you happen to be garnished, then your bank's going to protect twice that amount. If a bunch of them sue and you get multiple liens, doesn't matter. I have a lot of home equity due to the market being high. Uh, you know, there's always so many different ways to answer that question, farmhouse. We can go over that. I mean, if you own it, let's say you own it with a spouse, and you're 75, your spouse is 65. You're likely going to pass off before your spouse. And if someone were to sue you and get a judgment, then and the debt was your debt, then when you pass on, the property automatically transfers to your spouse. The judgment lien goes away. And then it depends on you, the state where you live. Some states, Florida, California, or Florida, Texas, a few other states have unlimited homestead exemptions. And then other states have pretty large homestead exemptions. So it depends on the state. Okay, you can call and talk to us. It just normally it's not going to be an issue. Okay, and and there's a lot more factors that play into this too. So put your questions in the chat feature and I'll try to answer them. And then I have other questions that people have posed, either notes from our paralegals that have talked to people or questions on the internet that they've given to us. So I'm in Connecticut with no spouse. Exemption is $250,000 for a single. I'm over that. Well, no one's going to take the home. And let's say, for example, I'd ask, who gets your home when you pass away? If you got kids, one person, when you could consider adding their name to the title as joint owners with survivorship rights. That way you own the property with your children. At your death, property automatically goes to your kids. And any judgment lien goes away. Now, if you're single and if you have a huge amount of equity, I need to mute my phone. I promised you before I would not let this happen again, but apparently I forgot this time. Okay, here we go. There we go. It's going to be quiet. Didn't want you to hear me. I think you may have heard that ringing. I don't like that. Okay. So yeah, if you own it jointly with your family or kids, then if someone sues and gets a judgment, then at your death, boom, the property goes to kids. Judgment lien goes away. Uh, a, a judgment in most states is a lien, can be a lien on real property you own in that state, not on the specific piece of property, but a lien on property normally that you own in the county where the judgment's located. Um, but if you own it with survivorship rights with someone else, like a spouse or children, then at your death, boom, the property transfers to the spouse or children. They're not on the judgment. Therefore, you're dead. You no longer own the property. They own it. The judgment lien is no longer there. It goes away. It's not always a good thing to do, but it can be a solution sometimes. What can be done if a creditor went into your IRA and took your pension? They're not going to go into IRA and take your pension. They cannot do it. Your IRA is protected. Okay. 74 years old, attorney for what, 46 years. No one can be able to go into your IRA. Never seen it done. They can't do it. It's protected specifically under ERISA. Okay. So no one's going to, and other laws, no one's going to take your IRA. You do not need to worry about that or a form or anything like that. Got to remember when with your help, if you're with help, so something happens, we're going to have you call us and we're going to go over this. I'll give you, here's an example. I talked to someone earlier today, a lady actually from Washington, D.C. I said, where are you from? She says, Washington. I said, oh, Washington, good. And then she goes, Washington, D.C. We don't have a little, on our phone, we don't have a little box to check, so I put Virginia. And I started asking her questions, and what's your no income? But she worked most of her life. And what about your Social Security? She says, well, they're taking it all. She says, IRS is taking it all. And I told her, I said, IRS isn't going to take all your Social Security. They don't do that. I mean, there's theoretically a possibility, but no, it never happens. And so, but she didn't really know anything. How are you living? She says, well, family and friends and church are helping me. And I told her, I said, do you have any of the IRS forms? Well, maybe somewhere I can find. I said, you need to dig them out, upper right-hand corner, call them on the phone, and find out what's going on with your Social Security. And then when you find out, you call back and ask for me. Ask that I be interrupted. I want to talk to you. I suspect she's being scammed. Someone may have her Social Security going somewhere else. Okay, because she sounded like she could have been scammed. I don't know what we got on this. In other words, we do a lot of things with help. We try to help our clients. We're going to protect you from debt collectors. We also want to educate you how to maintain your financial independence. Now, this lady is a client of ours. She's got lots of debt. I'm not worried about that because no one can take anything from her. She doesn't have anything. But I want to see her get her Social Security because she should be entitled to it. The most IRS would ever do is say they send you, if you owe taxes, they would send you a letter saying they're going to offset 15% of your Social Security. 15%. Not all of it, 15%. But then if you're modest or lower income, you can get on what's called currently not collectible status and not have to pay the IRS anything at all. So that's why I want to talk to this lady and find out what's going on and be able to help her. She should be able to get some Social Security. So they're not going to go into your IRA. Don't worry about that. Good question, but they're not going to do it. Okay, the property is noted in the county records that it will go to my daughter, and noted is that enough to protect the property from a lien or from a creditor trying to take it. Well, they're not going to try to take your real property. That doesn't happen. You might read somewhere that they could take your real property, and that, that's like saying, well, you could get hit by a drunk driver going to Circle K at 10:07 p.m. on Friday night. It's possible at exactly 10:07 it could be happen, but you don't even know if you're going to go to Circle K at 10:07 p.m. So it's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors to go after people's property, their homes, even if the person has equity in the home over and above the homestead exemption. the amount they're allowed to keep that's protected from creditors in bankruptcy or otherwise in the state where they live. They just don't do that for a lot of different reasons. One reason, it can be stopped. Another reason, it's just too complicated for them. Now, if you own the property with your daughter with rights of survivorship, so that means if someone gets a judgment against you, yeah, it can be a lien on the property. They're not going to take the property. Uh, the only way there'd be a problem is if you have excess equity in the property over the homestead exemption, and then you wanted to sell the property during your lifetime, then we'd have to deal with that problem. But if you kick the bucket, if you die, when you die, the property transfers to your daughter, boom, you're up in heaven, and the judgment, you no longer own the property, you're in heaven. The judgment lien goes away, and your daughter owns the property automatically. The lien does not transfer to your daughter. You're going to be okay. Barbara says, doesn't adding your children to your title LSO? I don't know what you mean. Yeah, why wouldn't you do that? Well, there's a lot of reasons you might do it. Because if you wanted to sell the property, the kids would have to sign off on the property. Okay. Most people tell me that would never be a problem. Another reason you might not want to do it, if there could possibly be some estate taxes. If you die and it goes to your kids another way, then that's what it's called, a stepped up basis, and there might not be any taxes if the kids go to sell the home. We don't give tax advice generally, but for a lot of our clients, they don't have a huge amount of equity, or it's under a certain amount, and there's really not an issue, but you can protect the home for your kids. I got a fake tax relief call. I told them IRS doesn't call cell phones, and they got off the phone fast. And you're exactly right. Can a creditor take my life insurance for my kids? No. First off, a life insurance policy. First off, you probably don't need a life insurance policy if the kids are all raised. But you're asking the question. Okay. And if you're paying on a life insurance policy, you may need that money more for yourself than for your kids. Life insurance is kind of important if you've got young kids, but if they're all raised, maybe it's not as necessary as it used to be. Okay. But a life insurance is a contract between you and your insurance company, and there's a beneficiary, and at your death, the life insurance company pays the beneficiary direct, and it doesn't go to you. The only way there'd be a problem is if the life insurance was paid to your estate, but most life insurance policies don't do that. It's paid to a beneficiary, which would be your kids, which is what you're telling me in your case. Okay, Barbara says, doesn't adding your children to the title cause them to be billed for the property taxes? Usually on a property tax notice, it depends on the state. They're not going to owe it personally, but usually in the state, it goes to one address, one person. They don't send it to everyone whose name is on the title. So if you were going to change the title to add your kids, you pay the property taxes. Now, obviously, if you don't pay the property taxes, the only remedy the county has is to foreclose on the property. They can't sue you personally. They're just going to take the property. So your kids won't be affected by it if the property taxes don't get paid. Property tax assessors don't report on credit or anything like that. Does a life estate affect outstanding debts, and is a good idea in general? It can be. What's a life estate is where, let's say you own a property free and clear, and then you could theoretically, under a life estate, you deed the property to your children and reserve to yourself what's called a life estate, which means they own the property, but during their lifetime, you have ownership of the property. You maintain it, pay the property taxes, and then at your death, your life estate goes away because you're no longer alive, and the property is now with the kids. Okay. Sometimes there could be a problem with a life estate because If you deed it to someone else and reserve to your life estate, a creditor, I thought, theoretically could say, well, it's kind of what's called a fraudulent transfer. You've literally given the property to someone else. Now, I doubt anyone would ever challenge that, but if you added someone's name to the property as a joint owner, then you just added someone on property as is for estate tax purposes, for estate purposes, inheritance purposes. You didn't just give the property to them. Can a lien be placed on a property that's owned by a family trust? Yeah, if it's a revocable family trust, which most of them are. Gets a little complicated. Okay, let's see what we got here. So here's one that kind of ties in with what we've been talking about. Someone asked, what about city or state taxation? Is that prevented if your only income is from Social Security? Okay, here we go. So once in a while, my computer does a hiccup. There we go. Got it back. So I talked about, what about city or state taxes? We're not talking about property taxes. We're talking about income taxes. And this was someone who wrote, was a comment on one of our videos or some video I did somewhere. It says, and I said, city or state income taxes cannot touch your Social Security. It is protected and can't be garnished. Okay? Unlike IRS, they could offset 15% for IRS, not the state or city. But I said, however, property taxes on a home are different. While they can't take your Social Security if it isn't paid, if you don't pay your property taxes, it could result eventually in a foreclosure for past due property taxes on a home. Okay? So if you owe the state any money for income taxes, they can't go after your Social Security or pension. It's protected. It's protected, which is, this person contacts us from Georgia. They said they had a heart procedure a year ago. Instead of checking something, they did surgery, and because he was in a lot of medical bills. He's been to a lot of doctors, can't work, about to lose everything. Yes. Thanks for listening to my problem. Hopefully the guy calls us and we'll talk to him. Now, he's not going to have to pay the medical bills. Okay. If he's paying credit cards, he doesn't need to pay it. Whatever income he has, he can use it for his needs. I suspect if he's a senior on Medicare, most of the bills are being paid by Medicare. Okay. So, yeah, if you've got some of these problems we're talking about, don't hesitate in calling us, 855-435-7787. 855 helps us or helps US. We'll talk to you. We got attorneys that can talk to you. We have paralegals that are very experienced. We're going to ask you some basic questions, and we're going to give you answers. And I promise you'll feel a lot better after you talk to us. Okay? This person calls us from Mississippi. All of my credit cards come out of my bank automatically. How do I stop this? Well, a couple of ways. One, if they're credit cards, you can get on the website and you can stop it on their website automatically. or you can call them on the phone and stop it automatically. If it's a credit card, they're used to people stopping automatic payments. They're not going to give you a hard time at all. They're not even going to ask you why. You say, I'm dealing with it otherwise. Okay. Now, if it's a high interest loan outfit, that might be a little bit different. They might give you a hard time. Then in that event, contact your bank and you can put a stop payment on that bill going out. Okay. There's a lot of things you can do to stop the payment. We have an email that goes over, it's a form email that goes over every single way you can stop an automatic payment. Okay. So if you have a, if you want to stop a payment on a bill that's coming out automatically, or if you're enrolling in helps and you say, I'm going to enroll with helps not this month, but next month or whatever, you can stop making the payments today and stop making the automatic payments today. Okay. So this person contacts us from Pennsylvania and they say, I'm a disabled 73-year-old senior citizen. I need assistance with resolving my overwhelming credit card debt and collection case from a contractor that did not do the proper work. So he's got a lot of credit cards, and it sounds like he may owe a contractor or something. Not going to have to pay him. We'll go over this with him and go over that tell him why he doesn't need to work. He doesn't have to be overwhelmed, and neither do you if you're having these problems. Call us. We don't turn anyone away. The cost for helps for those that pay is really minimal. I mean, all you have to do is look at the comments on our YouTube videos. Just check us out on the internet. We're legit. I mean, we help seniors. We actually give them correct information. I mean, I tell people, yeah, your income's protected, and it is. Okay. What's not supposed to be on the credit report? Well, since about 2018, they don't put down lawsuits anymore, and they don't put down tax liens anymore. So that's not on your credit report. It's really uncommon for medical providers to report on credit reports. Okay, it's uncommon. It's not normal. Sometimes a debt collector might. We have a program, 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score. We don't have it, but I pay a company called 720 Credit Score for our clients. We pay them a fee each month. And if you've been part of helps for more than 90 days and you want to rebuild your credit, we send you an email. You can enroll in that program and you can work on getting your credit back. Your credit is based on your recent credit history. A lot of our clients don't care about their credit. One reason is if you enroll in helps, and I talked to a guy earlier today. One of the questions we ask him, he says, do you have a credit card with a small balance or nothing is owed that you still want to keep? And he said, yeah. He said, well, what's the balance on? He said, $1,800. So, well, you can keep that card as long as you keep the payment current, and you don't have another credit card that's backed by the same bank that backs that credit card. And he says, Eric, I don't have another credit card that's backed by that bank. Then you'll keep that credit card. So, but a lot of our clients don't care about their credit, but some do, and you can rebuild your credit. Okay. This person contacts us from California. I live in California. I have a student loan debt. I am married and currently receiving a pension and Social Security. I have an extremely high student loan that is currently in deferment. Oh, I remember this one. I thought about this one. Okay. If I'm unable to continue to take classes, can my income be garnished? My doctor has not yet given me total permanent disability, which would then discharge the loan. I'm worried that I need to keep taking classes to keep the loan in deferment so I don't lose our only source of income. I'm 70 years old. I kind of thought about that, and I said, gee, that'd be one way of keeping from collecting, just staying cool to the day you die. I mean, I guess there's worse things to do than to get educated, but probably don't need to worry about. Like I explained yesterday and the day before, I'll let you know if you don't know that right now the administration has put a freeze on offsetting 15% 15% of Social Security to pay old student loans. They were going to do it on May 5th, and then they backed out. They stopped doing it. And I don't know if they're going to start it up again or not. But earlier, uh, before COVID, even before that, it was possible for 15% of Social Security to be offset to pay student loans, but you could qualify for what's called income-based repayment plan. And if your income was low enough, it could be $0. It's pretty complicated to accomplish that. And hopefully, if they ever try to start taking student 15% of Social Security again, they'll make the process simpler. But right now, so I tell this person is, I don't, if you don't want to go to school with a bunch of 19 and 20-year-olds, you could stop going to school. They're not going to take your Social Security, and your only income, Social Security, you could qualify for, if there's a problem, for an income-based repayment plan, not have to pay anything. But I may have heard of that before, but that's the first time I heard of it. Some guy thinking he has to keep going to school to keep them from taking their Social Security. So Joe asked, I just sent in credit cards yesterday. I've been with Helps for years because of medical bills. They've always come through for me, and I appreciate you guys. Okay. So there's a guy calls us from New York. I'm 72 years old, and I'm about to lose my home next year due to tax sale because my only income is Social Security. I'm behind 2 years in back taxes totaling $40,000. The home is worth $600,000 with no mortgage and has been on the market sale since last October. Oh, I talked to this guy. I remember I read this and I called him last week. No one wants to buy the house because my driveway is too steep. I'm afraid the house will not sell in time prior to the tax sale. Can you help me stop the tax sale until I sell my home? I'm currently not a Helps client. Well, I called this guy back and I said, you got a home that you say is worth $600,000. That's free and clear. Okay, we got a couple options. Well, for one thing, I said to him, well, would the home sell? You say the home won't sell because you got a steep driveway. Well, and it's free and clear, and you got it for sale for $600,000. Will it sell for $6,000? And he was kind of quiet. I said, well, but he goes, yeah, it will sell for $60,000. Yeah, there's a price that the home would sell for. Okay, you just may have it listed too high. But I told him, I said, if you want to stay there, you might want to look into what's called a reverse mortgage. A reverse mortgage would pay the existing property taxes and could provide to pay your property taxes so you could stay there for the rest of your life. Okay. I talk to a lot of people about reverse mortgages. I don't sell them. They're not for everyone, but sometimes they're an answer to prayer. And I'm sure I talked to this guy about the possibility of getting a reverse mortgage. I probably gave him contacts on where to find out about it. And then I told him, I said, if someone was up against it, foreclosure was going to happen right away, he could always file what's called a Chapter 13, which is a form of bankruptcy that would stop a foreclosure, and he could have up to 5 years to catch up on the past property taxes. Only problem is if he owes $40,000 in property taxes, he might have almost $1,000 Chapter 13 payment, which he probably couldn't afford because his only income is Social Security. But he's not going to lose that equity in that home. He probably just needs to lower the price on the home. There's a price that someone will pay for it that would be willing to go up the steep driveway to get to his house. In fact, I got on the internet, that's right, and I looked at the address and I looked at his home. It's a beautiful home in the woods. Gorgeous home. So he's not going to lose his home. So this person contacts us. They say, And got to understand when I do these YouTube lives, and a lot of you guys are regulars, but a lot of people are new, and so sometimes I answer the same question. Sometimes the same question gets answered every single day, but that's okay because we have a lot of new people that get on this YouTube channel and they want to learn about helps, and then a lot of people just want to hear it again. Okay, and I'm happy to do that, and so that's why I'm always happy to answer your questions on the chat feature. Okay, so this one asks, what about your spouse? Are they accountable? Well, okay. If you're married and the debt is in your name, like a credit card, are they going to come after your spouse if you don't pay it? The answer is no. Now, someone might say, well, Eric, what if it's a community property state? Then they can sue your wife. Well, technically that's true. They could, but they don't do it. I know. We got tens of thousands of clients. I've been doing this for over 40 years. No, it's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors or a credit card companies to sue a spouse if the credit card is only in one spouse's name. Now, has it ever been done? Probably, but I can't remember when it's been done. Okay. So they're not going to come after your spouse. So for that reason, a lot of times a person will call us and, I'll talk to them and I may ask, I said, is this debt only in your name and not your spouse's name? And they'll say yes. And I say, okay, well, that's fine. You can just enroll in helps. Your spouse doesn't need to. Now, if for some reason the spouse ever needed to in the future, we can always add them into helps under their account. There won't be any extra money or anything like that. Okay. Okay. Barbara says, is there a federal credit reduction program? I don't know what that means. Could be a scam. Doesn't ring a bell. Sounds like something a scammer would use, those kind of words. Okay. So this person calls from, oh, here's my answer to that last question. Apparently it was a question on one of our YouTube videos or some video somewhere. If a debt is incurred by one spouse only, that spouse is generally liable for the debt. An exception could be a medical bill, where state law, under what is sometimes called a family purpose doctrine, makes both spouses liable for a medical debt. Also, even in what are called community property states, it is not the practice of credit card lenders to go after a spouse who did not apply or sign for responsibility on a credit card debt. Person contacts us from Arizona. Can't afford my motorhome. I'm getting behind on bills. Well, you can let the RV go back. They'll eventually sell it. You'll get a letter called a notice of deficiency. If you're getting Social Security or pension, it's protected. If you want our help, Enroll in Helps will send a letter to the lender on the motorhome. Your income's protected on the motorhome debt. Don't need to worry. Okay, this person called us from Texas. They got a default judgment notice and wants to know what to do. Told her you don't need to do anything. I asked, you could send a copy to Helps if you're a client, and they were a client. You don't necessarily have to. Different states, there's collection procedures, and Texas has one of them. And what's the name of that? It's lifting. You get a letter from some guy who is say he's going to take all your property, court-appointed receiver, okay, from Texas. And then somewhere buried in the letter it says that the law allows. Well, Texas has really broad protections One of them, they have like a 50,000 log card. It protects anything. So no, get a default judgment in Texas. You're not going to lose anything. If you have a question, you call us. We'll go over this. That's the nice thing about helps. We always tell our clients, if you ever have a question, you're worried or scared, you pick up the phone and you call, no matter how often. No matter how often. So if you have a question and you're not one of these chatty Cathys here, they're talking about, which I don't mind, ask a question. I can spot it. Okay, I can spot it. Sometime, I guess, it would be nice. Maybe it helps if we had a section on the website where people can talk amongst themselves about these issues. Maybe I should work on that. I'll try to remember to talk to our tech guy and say, can we do something like that? Once again, I don't mind. Be really clear on that. Oh, what's that chatty cat? They had that doll. Remember? Pull the string. This person calls us from Louisiana. Saw your video about on senior living. He says, I'm questioning what to do. I have 2 credit cards that have sent my problem non-payment to Portfolio Recovery, which is a collection agency. He even tells us what their phone number is. Okay. One is Care Credit, and the other one is Credit One. I've sent them letters about all I could pay was about $50 a month, but you don't need to pay them anything. But I did not receive anything back from them in acknowledgement. I sent the letter to both of them. And then he goes on to say that the Care Credit card was, he let his granddaughter use it. It was in his name, and apparently she was in some type of place where someone grabbed a hold of the credit card and started using it fraudulently. He goes on to say, it's the interest that's too much. The amount never goes down because of low payment. My low payment, I just finally gave up. Can you please tell me what I can do about this? Well, you don't need to pay it. You don't need to worry about it. This person, you can just stop paying it. If your income, Social Security, and pension, which it is, and you don't want to deal with them bothering you, you can call helps. We can enroll you. We'll send a cease and desist letter, and you're not going to have to pay either of these credit cards or any other debt that you owe. Okay? It is Canada Day. Brings back a lot of memories for me. Okay, this person was referred to us by a law firm. Turns out she's got quite a few debts, and she owes a lot of money to her credit union. And then she talked to us, and if you're not going to pay your credit union, you're going to enroll in helps, you're going to need to switch to a different bank. Okay? It's because a credit union will either kick you out of the credit union or they're going to offset money from your bank account to pay the debt. Whether you realize it or not, when you enroll with a credit union, you gave them permission to take money out of your bank if you owe them money. Now, normally they won't do that right away if you're behind a month or two. They'd have to be 3 or 4 months before they'd start doing that. And that'd give you plenty of time to change and to have your bank account and your Social Security or your pension go to a different bank account. Okay, so this person contacts us from California. Social Security is their only income, and they don't own a car. The debt is just in his name. but they file joint taxes. So she's on whatever they owe for the IRS. Not sure if there's any lawsuits, just getting collection notices. He's on currently not collectible status. Oh, no, he isn't. We sent him an email about it. They're getting $6,300 and they owe $6,300 to the IRS. They're paying $100 a month. But the wife's income and his income together is really small. It's less than $2,000 a month. And so what we told him is, says, well, gee, your income is small enough. You should easily qualify to get on currently not collectible status with the IRS. You could just simply stop paying the IRS the $100 a month. What's going to happen? Well, probably nothing. The worst thing that would happen is the IRS would eventually contact you and say they're going to offset 15% of your Social Security. You'd have plenty of time to contact you. If they send you that notice, they won't do that for 60 days. It says that. Give you time to contact the IRS and get on currently not collectible status. If you owe IRS taxes, you're a single person, you have income about $2,400 or less, should easily qualify for currently not collectible status. If you're married, $3,500 or less, you can qualify for currently not collectible status, where you don't have to pay them anything. We have emails that talk about that, on how to apply for that. So remember, if you owe the IRS money and you're poor, you shouldn't have to pay it. And if your only income is Social Security, IRS may never even bother you. They may send you notices. Now, you want to open up and read the notices, because if you get a notice that says they're going to offset 15% of your Social Security, that then lets you know you'll have time to get on currently not collectible status. But sometimes I think that IRS's artificial intelligence lets them know they can tell that your only income is Social Security, a small amount, and you're not going to be required to pay the taxes. Okay. This person contacts us from Pennsylvania. They get about $3,200, and they're paying $1,000 for rent. They're current on the credit cards, but not able to keep up. So if you have 32 minus 1,000, what does that leave them? A little bit, $2,200, something like that. They're not able to keep up. Went through. We enrolled them, but things were really tight with other medical expenses. And then one of the paralegals, she said, I heard Eric talk on YouTube about leaving his dog and cat, because I'm not living at my regular home here for the next 2 years. And the paralegal told this person, he said, I assured them that the dog is fine, which she is, and the cat is one of the most beautiful kitties in the world. Well, it is, and it's with my granddaughter, who's a vet. Okay, and but I like the way the paralegal ended this. She said, they said they now will be able to afford buns to go with their hamburgers. Ha ha ha. Yeah. So they have, yeah, that's right. If you're struggling because you're paying the debt with having enough for food or medicine and basics, you can stop paying the debt. And you can be protected from creditors, and you can use your money for your basic needs. That's why lawmakers protected your income. They didn't want seniors going without basic needs. They didn't want them getting sick because they weren't eating the foods they were supposed to eat. It's not beneficial to society if we have seniors getting sick because they're not paying for their medicine or their food or their heat. That's why lawmakers protect that money for you. Okay? Mary says, I have more than twice my monthly Social Security in my checking account. Could I use the excess I invest? It's still protected, Mary. just not automatic. But if you have excess money and you want to invest it in some type of gold, I don't care. I don't know how anyone would find out that you did that. Okay. Person contacts us from Ohio. Just found out about us. Just found out about helps after signing up with a debt settlement company, and discussed our protections that they didn't need to do that. The debt is primarily in just the husband's name. Like I've said before, we asked them, and they were never told when they signed up with the debt settlement company that their income was protected, their Social Security and their pension was protected. No, they don't. If they would have told them that, they wouldn't have signed up with it. So if you're signed up with a debt management or debt settlement company, you can quit. You can ask them to return any money they're holding to you. If they didn't tell you your income was protected when you signed up with them, you weren't given complete information. So here's an interesting comment this guy makes, and I don't know what video it was on. And I'll kind of sum it up. He says, "I agree with everything you said, but I have a question," he says. "Why do creditors keep giving people credit cards over and over, even after that person has beaten them several times? I was behind with Midland Credit. I just got them paid off a few months ago. I received a letter from them in the local court system saying I'm paid in full. Midland gave me a credit card to help me rebuild my credit, but they're charging me a monthly fee to use that credit card." It is true that if you default on a credit card, it's not unusual for that same company, even if you haven't paid that old credit card, to give you a new credit card. He ends up, uh, he says, "I lost sleep and worried and prayed. I did everything. Some rules need to be changed. Thank you for posting your videos." Yeah, if you're losing sleep or you're worried, look at our videos. Call us on the phone. You don't need to lose sleep. You don't need to be worried, about this debt that you're having. No, we can help you so you don't need to worry about it. So why do they keep giving you credit cards? Because the interest. They get huge amount in interest. Um, let's see what we got going here. We're getting near the end. Uh, this person called us. They're on debt consolidation. They're going to cancel the service. We discuss the difference between bankruptcy and helps. She rents a room from a stranger. She has been waiting for Section 8 since 2023. Recently checked in and they told her they are still working on 2021. Discuss Section 8 waitlist resource. We have an email. You can apply. Section 8 is a program where the federal government will help subsidize your rent. You can apply anywhere in the country. You don't just have to apply where you live. Okay. So for whatever reasons, there were fewer questions today than there is normally. Therefore, I've gone through my list of comment things that I'd written in preparation for YouTube Live a little bit faster. Since there's not any questions and I've gone to the end, we're going to call it quits for today. But I can assure you I will be here tomorrow at the same time. And you can ask questions then if you have any, or if you're new and if this sparks your interest, call us toll free 855-435-7787. And we'll go over this with you. You're going to be fine. Okay. God bless, and I will talk to you tomorrow.